For 35 years, one performance has stood as one of the most electrifying in Black American cinema, a talented, self-destructive lead singer whose voice could fill a room and whose demons could just as easily tear his whole world apart. Audiences were so convinced by the singing, Michael Wright spent decades correcting them. No, he insisted. He simply acted like he could sing like that. On 19th August 2026, Michael Wright died in Los Angeles at the age of 70. This is the story of a nearly 5-decade acting career that stretched far beyond the role that made him unforgettable, and the family now grieving a profoundly personal loss. Michael Wright was born on 30th April 1956 in New York City, where he was raised and educated at the New Lincoln School. Acting found him early, and by his own account, quite simply, in a 2021 interview with Sheen magazine, he admitted he began acting in the late 1970s, largely because, in his own words, he couldn't do anything else. Quite honestly. That honesty and his commitment to complete immersion in his characters became defining traits of his approach from the very beginning of his career. Wright made his screen debut in 1979 in The Wanderers, a gritty drama about a teenage gang navigating the Bronx of the early 1960s, an early glimpse of the intense, layered performances that would define his entire body of work. Just 4 years into his career, Wright achieved a milestone many actors never reach. In 1983, he starred in Robert Altman's Vietnam War drama Streamers, playing one of a group of young soldiers awaiting deployment. The ensemble cast's performance was honored with the Volpi Cup for Best Actor at that year's Venice Film Festival, a genuinely significant achievement and an early sign of the serious dramatic range Wright possessed. That same period saw Wright break into television in a major way. In 1983, he was cast as Elias Taylor, a resistance fighter in NBC's ambitious science fiction miniseries V. He reprised the role across the 1984 sequel, V, The Final Battle, and the weekly television series that followed, which ran through 1985, introducing Wright to a wide, mainstream television audience for the first time. In 1987, Wright continued building his film career, appearing as Victor Duncan in the comedy The Principal, alongside Jim Belushi and Louis Gossett Jr. Then, in 1991, everything changed. Director Robert Townsend cast Wright as Eddie King Jr. in The Five Heartbeats, a musical drama written by Townsend and Keenan Ivory Wayans, chronicling 3 decades in the life of a fictional R&B vocal group loosely inspired by real groups including The Temptations, The Dells, and James Brown. Wright played the group's supremely gifted lead vocalist, a character whose immense talent carried the Heartbeats to the top of the charts, even as his addiction to alcohol and drugs slowly pulled him apart. It became, by wide consensus, the defining performance of Wright's entire career. Despite only modest commercial and critical success upon its original 1991 release, the film has since grown into a certified cult classic, and this year marked its 35th anniversary. What made the performance so enduring wasn't just Wright's acting, it was how completely convincing his singing appeared on screen. For decades afterward, fans genuinely believed Wright had done his own vocals for the role. He spent years gently correcting the record, telling interviewers plainly that he didn't actually sing like that, he simply acted like he did. It's a testament to just how fully he inhabited Eddie King Jr., blurring the line between performance and reality for generations of viewers. In 2021, the film's cast reunited for a widely celebrated retrospective screening at the Tribeca Film Festival, marking 30 years since the movie's release and reaffirming just how deeply it had embedded itself in Black cinema history. Wright's career never slowed after The Five Heartbeats. In 1994, he starred opposite Wesley Snipes in the crime drama Sugar Hill, playing Rainathan Scuggs, the younger brother of Snipes' character, another performance showcasing his range within complicated, morally layered characters. Perhaps his longest-running and most gripping television role came in the early 2000s, when Wright joined the cast of HBO's gritty prison drama Oz, playing Omar White, a drug-addicted killer who falls prey to his own unhinged cellmate across 22 episodes spanning 3 seasons from 2001 to 2003. Wright's filmography continued to grow across the following 2 decades, including appearances in Money Talks, The Interpreter, Piero, and Point Blank, alongside television roles on Miami Vice, New York Undercover, and Nash Bridges. As recently as 2019, he appeared as Lazarus Prime on the CW's Black Lightning, and his final screen role came in 2025's Dope King. Across more than 50 film and television credits and nearly 5 decades of work, Wright built a reputation for gravitating toward complicated, volatile characters, men wrestling visibly with their own inner conflict, brought to life with the same total commitment he'd shown from the very start of his career. Throughout his career, Wright spoke thoughtfully about his craft and what drove him as a performer. In that same 2021 Sheen magazine profile, which described him as one of the most underrated actors of his generation, Wright explained his philosophy plainly. "The greatest sin an actor can commit," he said, "is to fail to be interesting." He always tried to make his characters compelling, hoping audiences would find themselves riveted, wondering what was happening behind his eyes, and drawn into an internal journey alongside him. He also reflected, with evident contentment, on the life his career had given him. He said he'd done everything he'd wanted to do, that he'd been everywhere, that he spoke 5 different languages, and that he'd seen the world and loved every experience of it. It's the reflection of a man who, by his own account, felt genuinely fulfilled by the path his life had taken, a rare thing for any performer to say so plainly. According to a family statement provided to TMZ, Michael Wright died on Wednesday, 19th August 2026 at UCHI Medical Center in California, with his wife and children by his side. His family confirmed that he passed away peacefully following heart failure, coupled with complications from Marquia-Fava-Bignami disease, a rare degenerative neurological condition he had been diagnosed with back in 2015. Marquia-Fava-Bignami disease is an extremely rare disorder that gradually affects the brain's connective tissue, and Wright had reportedly managed the condition privately for more than a decade before it, alongside heart failure, ultimately contributed to his passing. His family chose not to disclose the diagnosis publicly until after his death, keeping that chapter of his life private for as long as they could. 2 days after his passing, on 21st August, Wright's wife, Susan Wright, shared the news publicly for the first time. In a heartfelt Instagram post, she wrote that it was with profound sadness and an unimaginable heaviness in her heart that she was sharing the passing of her beloved husband. She described Michael as a husband, a father to their children Manon, Byron, Brittany, Brianna, and Sir, a grandfather to Yoko, a loved one, a friend, and an extraordinary artist whose work had touched generations. She noted that so many people had come to know and love him through the 5 Heartbeats, The Wanderers, V, The Principal, Streamers, and the many other characters he'd brought to life across his remarkable career. But it was the more personal lines in her statement that captured the depth of the family's loss most powerfully. She wrote that his talent, presence, and contributions to film and television would live on, but that to those who'd loved him personally, he had been so much more than the roles the world knew him for. She closed with words that have since been widely shared and quoted by fans, that Michael's work would live forever, but that his love would live even longer in the hearts of those who knew him best. She asked simply that he rest peacefully, adding that he would be missed beyond words. Susan also asked, gently but directly, for privacy and grace for the family as they grieved, noting how grateful they were for the outpouring of love, prayers, memories, and condolences already being shared, and promising that more details about how they intended to honor and celebrate Michael's life would follow in time. Tributes poured in throughout the following weekend from fans and fellow performers alike. Many specifically pointed to the astonishing physicality and emotional honesty Wright had brought to Eddie King Jr., a performance so vivid that even 35 years later, audiences still recite entire scenes line for line. Fellow Five Heartbeats cast member Leon, who played alongside Wright in the film, joined the wider circle of colleagues mourning his loss, part of a broader wave of remembrance from a film community that had watched Wright build one of the most quietly influential careers of his generation, one defined less by leading man fame and more by an unmistakable, deeply committed artistry. Michael Wright spent nearly 5 decades convincing audiences of things that weren't always true, that he could sing like Eddie King Jr., that he could carry the weight of a soldier awaiting war, that he could survive a prison sentence as a broken man clinging to whatever humanity remained. That gift, the ability to disappear so completely into another life, is precisely what made him, in the words of one profile, one of the most underrated actors of his generation. He leaves behind a wife, 5 children, a grandchild, and a body of work that, 35 years on, still resonates with new audiences discovering the 5 Heartbeats for the first time. As his wife so simply put it, his work will live forever. Judging by how fondly he's already being remembered, so will the love people carry for him. If this tribute moved you, share your favorite Michael Wright performance in the comments, and subscribe for more heartfelt stories from the world of film and television.